I mean, the AL Central race back to being dead even record-wise. The Tigers avoid the sweep from the Guardians. They snapped their 8-game streak last night against Cleveland. Cleveland has the tiebreaker. Okay, Cleveland does have the tiebreaker, but of course, it was 2 nights ago that I put my money on Detroit snapping the losing streak, and instead they did it last night. That's the way these things go. Caroline Fenton, how important was it? Like, how imperative for the rest of what's in front of us was it that Detroit get this thing figured out last night?
How important is keeping yourself alive? That's how important it was. And that's exactly what the Tigers did last night, because if they would have gotten swept by the Guardians, you're done. Statistically, there was still a path for the Tigers, but I would not have felt very confident about it. I wouldn't have put any sort of money on it. It would, while it wouldn't have statistically been done, it would have felt very done. So the Tigers now keep themselves alive. I still, though, I cannot buy into it. The Guardians having that tiebreaker, I think, is everything. Now, there is a lot to be said about the Tigers kind of getting that off their backs. Now, the Tigers getting into winning ways. I think that winning a game and finally, not just keeping yourself in it, but starting to rewrite that narrative and starting to get back on the correct path, that can be contagious, and that can do impalpable things for your squad, especially at this point in the season. I mean, baseball in September and October is weird, it's freaky, and odd things happen, as we have seen over the course of the last couple of weeks. But the Guardians having that wild card is invaluable, and the Tigers not controlling their own destiny, having to have and rely on the Guardians slipping up, and the Tigers having to win one more game than the Guardians when the Tigers go to Boston and the Guardians play the Rangers that are already eliminated from postseason contention. I don't love the odds for the Tigers to at least win the division.
Okay, I hear you, but I also just learned you hate Disney movies. That's the only thing that I can take about this because, frankly,
Well, Fitz,
that's
you
what
hate sports movies, so maybe we're
that,
even.
that is probably fair. Look, I think that the only way that this can end is just like Superman. Like, you can watch Superman get his ass kicked for an hour and 45 minutes of a 2-hour movie as long as in the last 15 minutes he comes back and he wins. This is what I need here. I understand that the matchup to end the year is far more favorable. Like, Detroit is going to have to figure it out against Boston. That is not going to be easy to do. But I do believe, in the palpable energy and the joy. I just talked about it for Marvin Harrison Jr. for catching a touchdown. It just sort of takes the monkey off your back. I think what's happened over the course of the last couple of weeks particularly is we've seen the weight of the moment just constantly drag the Tigers down. And it's no one person, it's each person at different times. The number of just stupid moments that we've seen, I think, is pretty unforgivable in this process. How do you fix that? Well, you take all of that pressure off. You take the we just can't figure out how to win pressure off. Momentum is one of the most incredibly real things in sports. It's hard to get and it's easy to lose. And at some point, to me, this was a momentum moment. Now, so what I'm doing is I'm taking the body of work as a whole. And the body of work as a whole, not over the last month. I know that's hard to do. But the body of work as a whole tells me that the Tigers are capable of beating anybody. So now that they get the monkey off their back, they go into what I think is going to be an incredible series against the Red Sox and a real opportunity. So I'm going to take the Tigers to do the impossible here. That race is still going, obviously, but there's another one that's over. The Dodgers have clinched the NL West thanks to Shohei Ohtani hitting the water on number 54. That was a big one. So he hits the water there. The Dodgers win. What are you giving the Dodgers as their chance of repeating as World Series champions?
I mean, it is incredibly difficult to count the Dodgers out. I mean, like, when you have one of the best players in the sport, if not the best player in the sport, in Shohei Ohtani, and you're the freaking Dodgers, and you have the highest payroll in baseball, and your entire roster is star-studded, I'm not going to be the one to say bet against the Dodgers, but there is a fatal flaw on this team, and I cannot trust their bullpen. We say in football, defense wins championships. Well, it's my belief in baseball that your bullpen wins championships. Having enough quality and reliable arms to get you through the grind of the postseason is championship DNA. So there's not enough Roki Sasaki's or Clayton Kershaw's that are, vying for, being a potential reliever that's going to convince me that the Dodgers now all of a sudden have everything figured out. The Dodgers bullpen is now all of a sudden better than, let's say, the Padres bullpen because, Roki Sasaki coming back from injury, he is now, vying for a spot on this postseason roster. And I think that he will make the postseason roster because the Dodgers are desperate just for healthy arms and available and reliable arms in their bullpen. So I would say if the Dodgers do not win a championship, it is because of that, because they don't have a deep or reliable enough bullpen. But again, it's the Dodgers. Like it's like counting against the Chiefs. Yes, their offense has been stagnant through 3 weeks, but also it's the Chiefs. So you can't really count them out.
So it's alarming to me because the Dodgers certainly spent the money to have the bullpen that they wanted, and it just didn't work out. What's alarming to me is that the Dodgers, in many ways, their biggest strength is also the biggest weakness because even ESPN.com last week ranked the starting pitching for the Dodgers as the best of all of the rotations heading into the Major League Baseball playoffs. So what do you do when your starting pitching is great and your relief pitching is a problem? You mentioned Clayton Kershaw. It should be noted he has volunteered to go out and work as a reliever if that's what's necessary. Now, so far, Dave Roberts has said no to that. But let's see what actually happens when we're in the playoffs. Because the only counter I would say to you is, while I agree with you that I'll say pitching can win championships, I think what the Dodgers are going to have to do, or what a lot of teams do. How often do we see when we get into short series, you need one game, you need one inning from somebody. We see these weird rotations of pitchers that aren't typically relievers coming in and doing what they need to do. I think the Dodgers are going to have to manage their pitching creatively. I will say that. But I do believe that because their starters are so good, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see if they try and use that in creative ways, even on short rest, which can be an issue also, to try and just create different matchups on the mound that will give them the advantage. I'm not counting the Dodgers out until the Dodgers are actually eliminated. That's just fact. There's too much talent on this roster. And while I agree with you, if you're a Dodgers fan, you're puckered up over the relieving issues. I don't know that the Dodgers can't solve that by getting creative with the way they use their pitching overall. Let's take a look at the NL wildcard race at this point. The Mets hanging on for the final spot right now by a game over the Reds. The final series of the weekend for both. The Mets get the Marlins. The Reds get the Brewers. Who do you think grabs the final spot?
So I don't know how many times in history, at least in recent history, the Mets have been eliminated from postseason contention by the Marlins, who at that point in the season have quite literally nothing to play for, and they just end up playing spoiler. I don't know how many times that's happened, but it's happened enough for me to say, ha ha, the Mets are playing the Marlins, and what has happened in the past is probably going to happen again. And look, I take my fan glasses and my Cardinals hat off when I say this. I can't trust the New York Mets. When they zig, they zag. And when they zag, they zig. And it would be so incredibly Mets of them to just poo-poo away an opportunity to make the postseason. I will go with the Reds because the Reds get the Brewers who are playing for literally nothing. The Brewers are like, let's just get through the regular season because we've got way bigger aspirations to achieve in the postseason. So I think the Reds have a much better opportunity just in their final series that they have left versus the Mets, who always seem to poop their pants, not just at this time of year, but against the Marlins. I don't know what it is. The Marlins have the Mets number, Fitzy.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point, and I found myself, because I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. A week ago on this show, I said, no, I trust the Mets more to make the playoffs. I have too much money invested with too many people that have been there, done that, and they'll be fine under pressure. Then I watched the last series against the Cubs, and the number of times I sat there and thought, and I know that that's what Mets fans say all the time is, how did this happen? And that just feels like the cliche of the Mets are Metting feels like it's actually kind of real through this process. So now, all of a sudden, as you know, my well-documented trust issues, I don't know how I can watch the Mets and not feel some of those trust issues coming through at the end of this. Plus, again, I'll just go back to the pressure. Pressure is always a conversation to me. I feel like at some point we got to look at pressure for the Reds, pressure for the Mets, and ask ourselves, who's really feeling more right now? I think we know the answer to that. The Reds fly under the radar a little bit more. I think the Reds sneak their way into the Major League Baseball postseason. What I will say is
we out on the D-backs?
While you are, what'd you say?
Are we out on the D-backs?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're out of it. Are you?
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
out of the
just make-
D-backs. Yeah.
Okay, just making
Yeah.
sure. That's tough in
It's
your
impressive
household.
that
Like,
they're even in this position, though.
Yeah.
Like they sold at the deadline, and they're still 2 games back. I mean, I think it's credit to this team for being able to hold it together. But yeah, I'm out.
Just remember, as you get into a weekend full of football, keep the second TV on Major League Baseball because this playoff action is going to be absolutely wild.